Welcome to another Rostermania recap video. And this time we're going to be doing way too early roster grades. Emphasis on the words way too early. Of course, so many things can change. We don't know who's actually going to be playing what roles all the time, as well as the meta. The meta could be drastically different than what it looks like today than at the start of the season. I want to mainly just focus on the teams who have officially announced their rosters, and then after that, we'll talk about rumors, speculations, and agreements that have happened so far. So first, let's start off with NRG, where we have the likes of Verno, Mata, Ethan, Som, and Finesse. Honestly, overall, this team is looking quite dangerous, but I do want to start off with the newcomers. They picked up Verno, which I think that's just A+ overall. He's a good pickup. And I'm high on players who played like not only different agents, but different roles too. At the very beginning of the season, we saw that he was extremely dangerous on different agents. And throughout his tier 2 run in 2024, the guy can top frag on Yoru one map and then play Breach or Brim on the very next. I'm pretty sure that Verno could improve like 90% of the VCT teams. It's just a no doubt good pickup from NRG. Next we have Mata. His race stats are really far and above better than his jet stats, and that's a little bit worrisome just because the meta is ever changing and you want people who can play different agents at a high role. And I feel like the next season's meta is going to be between Jet, Raze, and Neon. You're going to see a lot more of those three. Of course, there's still going to be the niche picks of ISO and Reyna as well, which Mata actually has played Reyna like twice and done pretty well on the agent. But I think next year's meta is really going to be between one of those three duelists when we're looking for firepower between Jet, Raze, and Neon. But we don't really know what the future is going to look like. We don't know if Riot's going to continue to make changes to these characters, going to nerf them, going to buff them. And it's also dependent on the map situation. We don't know what the map rotations are going to look like next year either. Maybe they bring back Fracture. I hope they bring back Fracture. I really enjoyed playing Breach on Fracture, and I think you can see a lot more Neons and Rays on Fracture too, performing pretty well. I give NRG picking Mata a B. Again, just want to remind you guys, this is way too early roster grades. I could possibly eat my words. Mata could be the second coming of Neri, who knows? Or he can even put up like Heron level stats, who knows? Overall though, I feel confident in NRG's roster, you know? I'm not gonna put any like crazy expectations like winning back-to-back titles or anything like that, but I feel like a champion's berth is realistic for this unit, you know? You still have the IGL and Finesse who can read the game pretty well. Som has a lot of firepower himself, same with Verno. And then Mata has shown to be very good on Raze. And we've seen Ethan have championship level support too. They brought in Bonkers who, you know, just poking a little bit of fun at Chet. Nothing too serious, I think. And this will be his second time as a coach. He was a coach for Oxygen Esports. Maybe that's why they picked him up, because he had a history with Verno in tier 2. Maybe that's why they picked him up, who knows? But he seems very confident in his skills. So hopefully he can back it up. Overall, I'm gonna give this roster an A. And we can't forget about G2. They brought in Jagamo for IC, which is just a major upgrade. I feel like Jagamo can make any team better. And I did mention this a little bit during the 2024 season in one of my past videos, that G2 was always considered a well-structured team, but it felt like they lacked a little bit of that chaotic energy paired with the mindset of screw it, we ball. And I feel like in Valorant, you need a mixture of both. And who better to help solve that problem than Jagamo, a player who G2 had an opportunity of picking up for the 2024 season, but missed out. Jagamo, without a doubt, was one of my favorite players to watch during the 2023 and even the 2024 season. The dude was just having fun, making agents who had no business looking good look dangerous. I'm really glad that G2 decided to pick him up, because we'll finally get to see him on the international stage again, because it doesn't matter how good you are, if you're not going against the world's best of the best, your name for the quote-unquote best Raze or even the best duelist can't really be thrown into that conversation. But if G2 can do that in the year 2025, then almost any of these players can make a name for themselves. And I expect them to fully do that, because last year they did pretty well in standings. Yeah, they got eliminated in kickoffs, but they actually beat Sentinels. They just lost on round differentials, I believe. And then they got second place in stage 1, second place in stage 2, third place at Master Shanghai, and were able to make it to the playoffs of Champs 2024. Where I truly feel like they should be able to make it back to next year. Anything less would be kind of criminal. And if you guys can't tell, I'm giving G2 an A+ for this pickup. It's just a no-brainer. Next, let's talk about Cloud's 9 pickups. First off, they brought in Rossi, which I'm gonna give them an A for this one. He was solid for T1 during their like ups and downs. He usually was like a bright side for that team, and he was playing in a different country for a different organization, so he was able to adjust well and look like one of their better signings. So him coming back to the Americas region is cool. I hope to see good things from him with Cloud9. And Cloud9 decided to bring back Moose, who was pretty solid for them too. Even when they lost, there were times where he was still like high on the scoreboard, and a lot of times where his first blood and first death ratio was pretty good, and that's something that you would like to see as a Sentinel who's holding down a site, that you can count on him to like delay or even get one while the team rotates and whatnot, you know. So I think keeping Moose was pretty good. I give them like a B+ for that. And Vic seems like a pretty solid pick as their controller too. During his time in tier 2 with Ludwig's esports team, he was pretty solid, you know. He seems pretty good pickup. I give them a B+ for that. Overall though, I'm not gonna lie, it's just the stigma of Cloud9, right? You have Rossi, Zeppa, Vic, Moose, Oxy. This team can have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I'm already predicting it, you know, like they could look so scary during the regular season, but in classic C9 fashion, they might just struggle in the playoffs. I'm not too sure, because I think overall this is an improvement, which I like, but it's always that C9 stigma. And I also wonder who's going to be the IGL. I'm guessing it's going to be Rossi, and if Rossi's going to be IGLing, I'm going to suppose his stats might waver a little bit, but they still have Oxy. Oxy was definitely like one of the breakout stars. He just never had an opportunity to show his talents at the international stage, just because the team as a whole was just doing the Cloud9 Classic, where they dominate during the regular season and then fizzle out towards the end, when games really mattered the most. But I will give Cloud9 a B+ for at least on paper, they look like they have improved on paper. For Sentinels, they had to like replace 2 of their well-known players in TenZ and Saucy, and I think they did a pretty decent job at that. Maybe decent isn't really the right word either, because I think they actually did well, seeing how both TenZ and Saucy were really big parts of Sentinels. First thing, they brought in Narrate. During Karmine Corp, he was great on this team. Like even when Karmine Corp was slumping, he was the diamond in the rough that shined the brightest, you know. There's a reason why he hit rank 1 in Radiant and carried Karmine Corp even in their losses. As an initiator too, by the way, so he's flexible. You need players who are flexible, who can play multiple agents and multiple roles, because we don't know what the meta will be. You need to be ready for anything. And out of all the people who could replace Saucy, he might have been the best option. Like I can't think of too many initiators you would want rather than Narrate that were on the open market. Like I can't really think of any. He might have been the best initiator that someone could have picked up. And like Saucy did have his ups and downs. When it comes to like fragging, his utility usage was always good. Saucy's, right? You can always count on his utility usage to be good. He was also a good vocal leader too, from time to time, to motivate his team. Overall, I think this is just an improvement. I'm gonna give Sentinels an A+ for picking up Narrate. And now for Bang, I mean, let's be honest here. TenZ as a complete package is a better player than Bang, but I also want you guys to think, like, how many free agent controllers were available for pickup that are better than TenZ? It's not that much. It's a very small list, you know. So even though Bang as a whole, in my opinion, as a complete player, isn't better than TenZ, because TenZ could flex on other agents, right? He mainly did play Omen, but we saw him a little bit on Gecko. We've seen him in the past with Yoru. He could play a lot of characters and agents, and I just really value that flexibility. Whereas Bang mainly just been playing smokes his whole career, which there's nothing wrong with that. Specializing on a character is great, especially since he's played multiple smokes, and you're always going to need smokes, right? And like I said, the meta might shift next year, especially due to the changes with Chamber and Astra. We might not even see as much Omen as we did before, or maybe we might see less Viper. It might just be Omen Astra. We don't know what teams are going to be cooking up, right? And plus, like, the way that TenZ played versus the way that Bang played last year were completely different. TenZ was more offensive, while Bang was more like your traditional smoke agent. I think part of that is the reason why TenZ's stats look so amazing. Like in Masters Madrid, he was like one of the best Omens. In Masters Shanghai, you can't really say that Bang was one of the better Omens. Like, he was there, but he wasn't like the top 5. They might not even ask Bang to be more of an aggressive controller. He might be more passive, or he might try to fill in those roles for TenZ, and his stats can look great. I do want to say that Bang did look pretty dangerous towards the end of 2024. Like throughout the season, he was good, but then he started to like really elevate himself towards the end of the season. So there's a possibility that Bang might have another Zenkai boost throughout next year. And lastly, Sentinels did bring in Redox. as their sixth man. And this organization has a history of the sixth man playing for the official team during the regular season. We almost saw it. We almost saw it with Curry, but it didn't happen. We had to wait until the offseason to see Curry with the team, but they decided to bring in Redux. And you know what? It's never a bad idea to have a plan B, you know? My best guess is if, and this is a big if Sentinels start to struggle next season, they're probably going to replace Zelsis with Redux. That's just my best guess. Like, if your team is struggling next year, out of these people, if you had to replace anyone, it would probably be Zelsis, even though he is a good vocal leader and he understands the game pretty well. You don't want to replace your IGL. You don't want to cut off the brains of your team, obviously. Zekin, hello, one of the best raises last year, and he has shown us that he'd be able to flex on an initiator. Nere is just impressive as well. And then Bang, who's still a pretty good controller player, you know, like I said, that towards the end of the season, he was great. That just leaves Zelsis, you know, if Sentinels do have a bad season, it's probably going to be Zelsis who gets replaced with Redux, and that's a big if. To be fair though, Sentinels do have a history of their own players being unavailable for matches, either due to visa issues or illnesses. So having a sixth man, especially if you are the Sentinels organization, is a good idea. Overall, I'm gonna give Sentinels an A, right? Actually, I might give them an A+. Like, they look good. Like, we should see this roster at least one international event, just because like the Americas region is very stacked per usual. I'm thinking it's going to be just as competitive as it was last year when it comes to qualifying for tournaments, so you never know. But they definitely have the talent to not only make it to an international event, but to make noise at that international event too. Sentinels did a great job. Lastly, we have 100 Thieves. They brought in Xander, and Xander's a little bit tricky to judge this off of, because at the beginning of tier 2, he looked phenomenal. He looked pretty good, you know? And then after they brought in Ned, I'm guessing, this is just a pure guess, I don't really know the inner workings of M80. I'm guessing Xander took in the IGL role at one point in time. His numbers were like a roller coaster. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. Ned does have a history of being in IGL in the past, so it just depends. Like, if Xander was IGLing for M80, then I could understand why his numbers dipped a little bit, you know? But if he wasn't, I'll be a little bit worried. Busio is a great IGL. Busio and Zix can unlock players in ways that other people can't. So we never know. Xander might have that narrate kind of shocker where he just dominates or helps the team win. And overall, 100 Thieves is still a pretty good team. They have Busio, Xander, Cryocells, EU, Asuna. Like, overall, this still is a pretty good team that has a lot of firepower. And even though from like the outside looking in, it felt like Bang leaving 100 Thieves might have blindsided them a little bit, but it might be a blessing in disguise, because at the end of the day, one of the key things that I remember from the 2024 season is that change is good. Changing your roster with different faces is not a bad idea. Most teams who did improved, so having a fresh face on the team is a good idea. I'm gonna give Xander a B+, especially since Xander and Cryocells have a history, so that team chemistry is a good thing as well. So I'm gonna give this a B+ for 100 Thieves for bringing in Xander, even though I do think Bang as an individual player is better, but sometimes it's not always about who's better, it's just about fit too, you know? Xander might be a better fit for 100 Thieves, because at the end of the day, this is way too early grades of roster moves. We haven't even seen these teams compete yet. But there have been some other movement going on in America. It's all but confirmed that Leviathan have picked up Demon 1, which is cool. The big question with this organization is, are they keeping Aspas? Is he going to be riding the bench? Is Aspas going to be able to find a team? Because a lot of people had that train of thought that Leviathan were only able to afford Demon 1 if someone was able to buy out Aspas, and they would use that buyout money to afford Demon 1. But if Aspas is not able to get picked up by anyone, can Leviathan afford both Demon 1 and Aspas on the same team? And if they can, who's going to be really playing duelists, right? Are they going to just be doing double duelists? I mean, that can work on some maps, but not on the majority of them. We've seen Demon 1 play Brim and Smokes in the past, and he did a pretty solid job. But do you really want to be paying top dollar for a worse version of Demon 1? But then again, Chamber could be in the meta now with his changes, and I can see Demon 1 doing pretty well on Chamber. So if they do decide to keep Aspas and Demon 1, I can see Demon 1 fragging out on Smokes and as a Chamber player too. I do want to say that the Booms esports owner did say that he was able to afford Aspas's buyout, but he just can't afford his salary. So that just goes to a testament to like how expensive moving Aspas is for the majority of teams in the VCT. And I do want to mention that it's looking like Mazinho is going to be going to Crew as well For EMEA, I haven't seen any teams officially announce their rosters, like with a trailer or anything like that. If I miss any, let me know and I'll cover it next week. It has been stated that Shadow is free to explore his options, and it looks like Runner is going to be leaving Vitality to play for Giants in an offseason tournament. So I would imagine if he does well in the offseason tournament, maybe Giants would pick him up. They've been doing some moves as well. It's been rumored that Vitality is going to be picking up Les and Durka. There just hasn't been an official announcement on what their roster is going to be looking like, you know? And I would imagine, unless maybe they keep one other player on this Vitality team, there might be another person who leaves. And like I mentioned earlier, Runner would be playing for Giants. Giants is looking like to reform their team altogether. It has been stated that Rhaegar will be leaving Giant X. And it has been announced that Fnatic has signed a player for off-season events. This is most likely because of contract situations where certain ones are ending probably after events, so they can't really make this player signing official yet from Apex. It's just my educated guess. And then we have Yampy and Pro Freak to BBL, which is an interesting mix. But hopefully it will pay off for them. I just feel like BBL should be a lot better than their records show last year, but we will see. And it's also rumored that Clix will be joining Gentlemates. Looks like a lot of these French teams are making moves to bolster their talent. Probably has something to do with the fact that there's an international event going on in Paris. Hopefully it pays out for them, especially Gentlemates, because this is their last year. If things don't turn out well, then they're going back to tier 2, which would suck to see because I really like their like color scheme and logos, both the old and new one. I personally like the old one too. We'll see how everything turns out for them. Now we have Pacific. One of the better teams in this region, Gen G, decided to re-sign Texture and Charon. And of course, just before I hit the upload button, Munchkin has re-signed with Gen G. Sorry for the change in audio quality. Don't want to wake up my neighbors. But we kind of saw this coming anyways because some people noticed how Munchkin was walking around Gen G's facilities when Charon was streaming. And honestly, this is just a good move. You want to keep your IGL if you notice you guys had a winning formula. But yeah, this is a good move by Gen G. I just wonder who their 2 other players are going to be. We'll find out soon, hopefully. Still up in the air about Lakia. We don't know what's going on with him. But one of the interesting things is that Gen G didn't re-sign Meteor. I thought Meteor was definitely going to be a player that they try to keep just because he was a solid like Sentinel for them. And sometimes he flexed on duelists. And he was already on Gen G too. He was like the only person who was originally on Gen G before 2024. However, that's because Meteor went to T1, right? It's also rumored that Buzz is going to be joining T1 too. Nothing official. He has threatened to cause mass destruction to anybody with a spoon if they spread this information as fact though. So be careful of that. They also picked up another player who a lot of people are hyped up about. He used to play on Gen G and then he went to China for a little bit, but now T1 decided to pick him up. So I guess he's been grinding rank because according to his VLR page, he hasn't really been doing much in the competitive scenes of VCT. But honestly, I really like this pickup from T1. Like, just picking up Meteor by himself is great. And the lineup of like Stax, Meteor, and Izu already just by themselves, it looks scary. Extra is speculated to leave just because the T1 CEO said that they were going for an all-Korean team. And I'm still kind of up in the air about Carpe. Not entirely sure what's going there. I guess they're going to keep him. That's just me guessing though. Nothing factual. And another Korean team that's doing great things is DRX. You know, they picked up these 2 young talents, which a lot of people are hyped up on. Freehan was fragging out for a rare item as a Smokes and Sentinels player, and Hayumin has been fragging out in the Japanese challenger scene, and a lot of people are drawing comparisons to something when he was playing in the Japanese circuit too, so that's really high praise. So DRX, at first I was like, wow, I can't believe DRX is letting go of all their players, and then they picked up these 2 young talents that looks pretty promising. Honestly, I would be a lot higher on DRX's stocks if they kept Buzz, because currently they don't have a full 5 roster, so only time will tell who else they pick up. I do want to mention that Benkai and Lightning Fast are free agents now. And also Boom Esports is getting rid of their coach and a player. And hey, if you're going to get rid of a coach, the offseason is probably the best time to do it. So, but yeah, Pacific looks like they're in good hands overall. I'm liking Pacific big time. And then I also want to mention that Flexing has left Billy Gaming. I feel like he's going to just end up joining every single Chinese team out there. He's collecting them like they're Infinity Stones. But yeah, if you guys want to see more of these like weekly recaps, let me know down below. I'll keep doing them. If not, I'll just stop. It's no biggie. But yeah, till then, stay safe, be a KDA warrior, and I'll see you guys later.